So Leon, welcome back to now our first full coaching session after we did our planning and our goal setting last time. We'll get a bit into what you're going to talk about today in a minute, but I just wondered before we started, a couple of weeks ago we had that session. Any further thoughts and reflections that you had about what we talked about in that hour? Anything that's sort of popped in over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I have been thinking it through, certainly more intently straight after this session, about what we discussed and about the plan. It was a long session and there was a lot to talk about. We got through a lot of subjects. So I think all these things are important to me. And obviously there's some certain points that we discussed that are even more particularly important. So I've been thinking about those, and a lot of the discussions are things to do with what I'm planning for the future, near future. And I know that future can change, the prospect of that can change. So I'm conscious of that. Such as this discussion about working abroad. There's been further discussion since our meeting, and I'm not saying that it's looking doubtful, but there's certainly going to be more delay in seeing that actually happen. So yeah, I think it's being conscious of the fact that the goalposts will move a bit. But the core issues we talked about, and yeah, I'm keen to work through those with you. Yeah.
And thank you for that. And it's good to notice that, isn't it? Because those type of things are out of your control, aren't they? Decisions from an external perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of the last session, we talked about using this session for like looking at the overall goal. But when we were just having a chat before we started recording, you said perhaps not, perhaps start thinking about you and confidence. So just tell me a bit about what you want to focus on today.
Yeah, I think a good place to start is to talk about confidence. And whilst I am a fairly confident person, I don't think I'm confident enough.
Yes.
And obviously, it seems to affect everything in my daily life, mostly to do with work, but it can also be personal things. And having self-doubt, I mean, that seems to creep in a lot. So dealing with that, I think, is a huge step in how give me the tools to deal with it on a daily basis, really. Yeah.
So a huge step, and being able to deal with it on a daily basis, and the fact that it impacts on many areas of your life. So what would it mean to you? What would it mean to you if you really turned the corner, or today was like day one of starting to turn the corner and feel more confident? What do you think it would mean to you?
Yeah, that would be tremendous. I know how it feels when you feel confident, and when you feel like you've done a good job of something, you've done it confidently. I know that feeling, and that's what I'd like to be able to bottle up and use as often as I can. I know not everyone can be confident all the time, but there's no doubt methods for dealing with times when you don't feel as confident, and how to get through it, and not to keep beating yourself up, because I do that a lot. I'm a best and worst critic, and I think that doesn't do me a lot of good, really. If people tell me I've done a good job of something, I'm straight away, I don't believe them. I think you're just being nice to me. So that's crazy, really, to think that. But yeah, I think if I can have that sense of being confident in what I'm doing, that's a huge benefit and a big step forward.
Okay, fab. So definitely worth putting in a decent amount of time on. And how do you think it will impact all the other things that we've got planned? The things about your next steps and the move and career planning, and even relationship stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think doing it in the order we're looking at now is a good way, because you need the confidence to do these things. So having confidence dealt with first is definitely going to help the follow-on.
Yes.
Doing it the other way around could still work, but I think it's going to be a more difficult process. Not having enough confidence in myself or self-doubting myself may inhibit moving forward with some of those other points that we talked about.
Okay. So this is like maybe like a foundation, something that's going to underpin all those other things you want to work on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So if we're going to take 45, 50 minutes today on this big topic of yours, where would you like to be by the end of it?
Sorry, at the end of today?
At the end of today, at the end of today's conversation.
I think I'd like to have a better understanding of how you build confidence, and understanding why it can be a problem, how it is a problem. Maybe it's specific to the individual, but yeah, I think coming out with a bit more understanding and maybe having worked a little way further forward in progressing to being able to deal with the issue of self-doubt and not having enough confidence. Yeah.
And how important is that? How important is for you, like, understanding this so that you can start changing it?
I think understanding it from grassroots level is important. Well, with anything really, knowing the detail and not just skipping over that to say, you know, we're going to make you feel confident, but you're not really going to know how that's happened.
Yes.
Yeah, I think knowing how it comes together, from the very basics, that really would help me.
Okay. And just to be clear, you're talking about how it comes together for you, you know, because there's, you know, for you and me and what's his name around the corner, it could all be different, couldn't it? It's not textbook, it's personal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what will good look like if we get to this place by the end of our conversation? How will it feel? What will it look like to you?
I don't know if I can say what it would look like. What it would feel like is a kind of motivation.
Yeah.
Something that says, yeah, you really made a big step here, and you've got some better understanding, better knowledge. Let's use this. You know, I want to have the want to use it, and the want to do something about it. I know it's going to be some hard work going in to make it happen, but it's such an important thing to me. I can't just sit around and not do something about it.
Okay, thank you. And we'll explore that in a minute, what you've already done about it, because that would be really interesting to know. So from those words, it sounds like, motivation and incentive to carry on after a conversation today.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we're starting to talk to it, we're like, what feelings is it already invoking in you? What feelings are bubbling away right now?
I guess straight away I start thinking about how it can benefit me in terms of work, but not just work. I think in a kind of on a personal level. And you know, I'm a single guy, so I'm keen to meet somebody, and I know that there's been times when I've you know, tried to get into a relationship. I think the confidence has really buckled. And that's not a good place to be, really, when you're meeting somebody new or trying to establish a relationship. So I think that really does have a big impact on that. In terms of work, it's really dealing with people who are very skillful professional, and I guess in a way I struggle to sometimes make conversation, because I'm just thinking straight away, oh, I'm not good enough for this. So there's just a couple of examples of how it does affect me. And obviously at the end of this session, you know, if I can have a bit more understanding and I'm sure I've probably in the past read about these things, how you deal with confidence, but it's how you package it up and use it for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hold on to that analogy if it works well. The packaging it up, the idea of there is stuff out there as well as maybe stuff internally that you've worked out yourself that is usable. It's a practical aspect, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fab. Okay. All right. Well, listen, in a minute, let's get into the detail of this. And I mean, you've already started sharing plenty of detail. But before we do, I just really wanted to check on how we're going to work together. I mean, this is after our last session. Now we're sort of starting having this coaching type of style. So as a reminder, you know, this isn't any advice. I'm not going to give you any feedback, even though I've seen you do many great things, right, in our time together at Toastmasters. So it's not about me telling you that I think you're fab or anything. But I'm really wondering about like how firm do you want me to be? How much stretch do you want me to be to help you sort of push beyond these feelings? Or how gentle do you need me to be? I mean, I'll always be kind, but on the sort of the firm to gentle approach, what do you think you need today?
Oh, certainly somewhere be more than midway. On the scale of being light to firm, I'd say 1 to 10, I'd say, yeah, around an 8 or even a 10, you know, where it need be.
So that's definitely 10 is definitely more than midway, right? In my
Yeah. Obviously, if there's you know, a lot of homework involved, I've got to see how that fits in with everything else I'm mad crazy busy on. But yeah, I want to make the best use of these sessions.
Okay, fab. Okay, and what would that mean to you? Like if we did sort of stretch and push and it was like an 8 or a 10, what do you think that might mean to you?
Yeah, I think it would be that I'd see more of a result from that.
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes I do need that.
Yeah.
To be under some pressure.
Yes.
And you know, my daily work is often me trying to be motivating myself because I don't have somebody there to do that. And I could do with having a push on things. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, we'll go a bit firmer than my normal, and also, like in terms of homework, it will be anything that you'll set yourself. But then what I will do, as we agreed last time, I will check in on you and I will find out how you're getting on, and I will give you a little nudge so you know there's a bit of accountability.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Is that all right? Are you ready to get into the substance of this now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that the starting place for me, it seems to be like thinking about what you've already done to start getting this word understanding, what you've already done over your life and your career to start understanding your own relationship to confidence.
Sorry, did you say relationship confidence?
Yeah, your relationship with confidence, or how you react in the confidence sense. You know, what have you already done to start exploring that?
I suppose pushing, challenging myself with doing things that I'm very doubtful about doing.
Yeah.
You know, a good example of that would have been joining Toastmasters. But then I know a lot of people are petrified about going to do public speaking.
Yeah.
And that was my experience. But when I got over it, I thought it was fantastic. But what I realized, it's something you've got to keep doing all the time. The moment you let off a bit, the doubt starts coming back in. It's something I feel was ingrained in me, probably from, you know, my younger years, living a very sort of sheltered, protected life. You know, as good parents do for their kids. But yeah, that's probably where it all sort of stems from. So yeah, my relationship with the confidence, I think, yeah, I want to have control of it and use it in any application, really.
So there's a bit of a paradox there, because you, on the one hand, you talk about things being ingrained, right? You know, from, I suppose, from early years, but on the other side, you talk about having some control about this. So what's the relationship to something being ingrained and then something you taking a bit of control over for you?
Sorry, do you want to say that again?
Yeah, so if you've got something that's ingrained, it implies it's stuck. If you've got something that you've got control over, it implies you can move it around. So I'm wondering what is the relationship between those two things that seem to be contradictory.
Yeah. The ingrained element, I think, is it's always there. It probably always will be there.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to beat that by not doing something about it.
Yeah.
And I've got to keep doing something about it. So it's you know, I have an environment where I'm challenged by myself, the work that I take on and the deadlines and all the rest of it, but I'm not challenged by having the competitiveness of other people around me. So I lack that gameplay in environment. So I think I need to refresh myself on things like assertiveness and being able to use tools of confidence as and when needed. So a lot of the time, you know, I'm going to need the confidence to not procrastinate, which I'm often sometimes doing on my own here, and I want to have the tools to be assertive and confident when I'm in an environment where there's other people and I'm trying to sell myself to them. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of words that are popping up. That word assertiveness. What's the relationship for you between assertiveness and confidence?
I think you obviously have to tread very carefully with assertiveness. It can come across as being aggressive or arrogant, and it's using it in the right sort of measure, really. And I think that's something that's a skill, isn't it? You've got to use to perfect it. And I know that I need to have that for certain situations I'm in when I'm dealing with contractors or somebody like that. You know, they always seem to the environment is always about being assertive. Everyone's assertive. So I need to be assertive, but at the right kind of level, and knowing what that level is, and having the confidence. And I can look back at times when I have done that and it's worked, and then there's other occasions where it hasn't worked, and I felt like I didn't have control of it. I wasn't able to conjure up that level of confidence and assertiveness I needed.
So a bit more about that, because you've talked about sometimes I could and sometimes I couldn't, and you used the word conjure up. So talk a bit about conjuring up when you can conjure it up.
Yeah, that's a strange thing, I suppose, to look at. In that conjuring it up is almost like saying, well, I'm in this situation where I'm not feeling confident. How do I suddenly, what do I need to do to bring that in this moment of tension, on the spot moment? I'd have to say I don't have the tools to do that effectively. I think once I'm on the back foot, and that's where I'm on the ropes, literally, sometimes with certain situations, if it gets a bit argumentative or and I know that the times when I've been able to jump in and be assertive is when I've got the knowledge, something that we're discussing or arguing about. So the two are linked: confidence and assertiveness. Definitely the confidence to bring that in when it's needed, but the confidence also to believe in yourself, because I do know the answer to the question, but at that particular time it wasn't there when I needed it, and I didn't know how to deal with not knowing the answer to the question.
So from what you just said, and I do know it. So is it like you know it, but like you get brain fog or whatever, that in the moment you can't say those things, they don't come to your mind? Is it that?
Yeah, it's that kind of moment of being on the spot, and whatever it is that you're trying to say, explain, it's not coming across fluid enough.
Yes.
Or you just don't have the right answer. But then soon after you realize, actually, I do know what the answer is, but you just didn't use it at the time.
So it occurs to you when you get in the car later on, or later on that day, oh yeah, I should have said blur.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know how common a phenomenon that is that you've just described?
It's definitely increasing with age.
I think I meant, I don't normally ask this, but I think I meant outside of you, like with other people, like how sort of relatively universal it is.
Sorry, you mean how often I
No,
experience?
how often, how common other people go through this type of thing? How it's a very common thing.
Yeah, I do think it's a common thing. Yeah, I do. But I've seen people deal with it in a way. You think for a minute they're vulnerable, and the next minute they're coming back with something very strong.
Yes.
And doing the kind of work that I do, there's that sort of thing goes on a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, legal work, expert witness work. Yeah.
And is it particularly, you know, these examples you give seem to be like quite tense examples. You know, you said a building site when everyone's assertive, or someone's being argumentative, or courts of law, or experts, all the rest. Is it particularly in those type of quite heavy environments that you find that this is a struggle, or is it in other environments as well?
It's that and other environments. So dealing with relationship issues. Not very long ago, I was in discussions with, you know, a lady I was seeing, and we were at that end point, and there was lots of things I would love to have said that I felt perhaps could have made a difference.
Yeah.
But I was overcome by just listening to her side, really, and my side came across quite weak. So yeah, that's probably a very good example of where you know, the confidence was lacking, and the lack of what to say was lacking. Yeah.
And talk about, if you don't mind, talk about that moment, like the moment where there's this sort of endpoint discussion and there's probably emotions going on. What did you notice about yourself in the I can't say at those moments?
Yeah, I was definitely I think I was trying to be too nice.
Yeah.
And I thought perhaps that would work as an approach, but really it was the only approach I was able to use.
Yeah.
There was things that were said that I could have contested or made a stronger point on.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been more impressive.
Yeah.
Instead, I think capitulating on everything is a real sign of weakness, and probably that person would have lost respect for me, because I think it just comes across as too much, just being a bit too fake and trying to, yeah, just putting up no resistance and giving up and saying, yeah, I agree with you on everything. That actually can frustrate somebody a lot more.
And
Yeah.
did you not agree on anything, on all of those things? You know, did you have things that you wanted to push back on?
I did, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do it. So I think the outcome, perhaps there might have been a bit different if I'd, you know, we could have got into a bigger debate about things, and maybe that would have made that person feel better about me.
Yes.
But there was nowhere to go with the argument or the issues.
And you use, and it's a strong word, isn't it? You use this word weak to describe how you might have been perceived. Is that how you perceived yourself after that?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it's not the first time.
Yeah.
I think most encounters like this, you know, we've all been through relationships, and at some point they end.
Yeah.
and there's always that kind of discussion that goes on. Even if I think back to when I was separating or divorcing my ex, and a lot of the, yeah, if it wasn't for the if it was the discussions that led up to that were always me being on the back foot, really. That was where I felt most comfortable.
Yeah.
But I never knew what going forward with an argument, what it would have felt like. But I think it would have been the better thing to do.
So you've got over here, you've got the comfortable, familiar, you used the word earlier on, ingrained over there. But there's something going on for you, isn't it? That it doesn't, although it feels comfortable and familiar, it doesn't feel like the right thing for you to do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And what does that tell you? What does seeing that sort of apparent contradiction tell you?
I think it tells me that I'm going to always try and take the path of least resistance. And even if it means that I come out of this worse off,
yes,
I'm avoiding the conflict. And and that's how I feel weak when it comes to that situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
The path of least resistance, avoiding conflict, might not be the best outcome, but you end up feeling weak. So. Well, Leah, we're about halfway through our time, man. I really appreciate, you're sharing some very personal things, so thank you, and I hope it's useful. But let's just take a moment and let's just check in. What's useful? What are you learning as we talk this stuff through today?
Yes, so I can see there's a link between these different, I don't know if you call them traits, but being vulnerable, taking a path of least resistance, confidence, lack of not using assertiveness. They're all in that sort of zone of what you need, to be a confident person going forward. So yeah, I can see how it's all connected, and it's not being comfortable in a conflict situation. Being too nice.
Too nice. Might be fine for the dating apps, but yeah, too nice. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for that. So you said that at the beginning you wanted to get an understanding. So what it sounds like we've been able to do is like cluster together a whole bunch of common themes and language that shows a way of being. In terms of understanding, this is not therapy. We're not trying to unpick childhood, right? But in terms of understanding, what do you need to understand any more than you can see that this is a pattern or a habit or tendency?
Yeah, I think understanding whether it's something that's in my makeup as personality, or is it more to or partly to do with how my past upbringing, not really having, some people are brought up in an environment where they have to very quickly get used to conflict, dealing with difficult situations. I'd say I haven't probably had that a lot. It's been more of I've been coasting along and ducking and diving and moving, more avoiding those kind of things. But so remind me of the point you asked there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to grips with like what more do you need to get an understanding of this for you?
Yeah. I think finding out root cause, really. Yeah, is there that tiny point somewhere in my life or makeup that is always going to radiate out that lack of confidence thing? Is there a way to eradicate that? Is there a way to change me enough that I don't have that problem anymore? I don't know if that's something, you know, can you cure it with a pill? Can you cure it with therapy? Or is it something you've always got to take something for to keep it in the background and deal with? I kind of think it is the latter, because being the age I am now, I'm worldly enough to know that lots of people have issues. Everyone does, but it's having the right tools to deal with it. And that's probably where I think it's at. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll look at the right tools in a minute. And on this question, you talked about like the root cause and the moment to be able to eradicate that. So there are, and I don't know whether you've had any therapy, but there are schools of thoughts in therapy that say we'll take you to that moment, you'll understand it, and then you can put it to size. There are other schools of thought that say you don't worry about identifying like that sort of that single moment, because actually you can move on and you can change. So if you choose to go back and unpick it and try and get to the root cause, of course you can do that and you can use that in therapy. But here in coaching, we're a bit more about like trying to say, okay, how can you move on from here? So is that okay? So I mean that's, you know, you wanted some challenge. I think my challenge question to you is to think about whether you need to go and have some therapy about this particular topic. You need to get right to the root cause, and I'd have that as a question bubbling away over the next few weeks, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to look at it as you've suggested there. It's something I've dabbled with before many years ago, with some cognitive therapy, all to do with confidence. And it wasn't about going back to any kind of events or anything in your life. It was put that to bed and we're going to go forward. So that seemed like a good way of dealing with it.
Yeah, you're right, and that type of therapy is much more than the pragmatic. They're not worrying about the root cause; they're building up from now. Okay,
that's right.
Okay. So, and I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying you wanted a challenge question, so there's a challenge question. So let's talk about this thing. If we move towards a bit of change now, there's a fundamental question that's popping up really, which is your beliefs about the capacity for change, for developing techniques and strategies and approaches, even if you don't understand the root cause. Now, where are you at with that?
Where am I at? Oh, I think I'm way past the point of looking at root cause. I know I talked about that earlier, but I think because I need to develop myself to be confident, I'm needing that quite soon, like now. And so I don't have a lot of time to, you know, build it up from the very basics. I think it would be nice to understand the basics. I think, but I think going forward, it's a crash course.
Brilliant. Right, it's one of those learning 90 second things. Okay, well if are you all right to focus then on sort of crash course type of talking in this last 20-25 minutes? Okay. So I think the first place I think could be helpful to start is where it already exists in your life. You know, you've talked about difficult moments and finding it hard to be confident, but what about moments when you have been confident, even if whether they were difficult moments or not so difficult moments? When have you developed and shown confidence in what you're doing?
There's in fact there was a time which you did help me with, Charlie. If you remember, I was involved in I was a delegate at a conference, and again it was for, you know, expert witness work. There was a lot of people there to watch and listen, and I was on a panel of very eminent individuals, other experts and lawyers and barristers. So I was probably my most nervous ever in just even agreeing to go and do that. But I did do it. I took that step because I wanted to push myself. The only way I was able to be confident enough to stand up and talk to the audience was through rehearsal, practice, and putting in a ridiculous amount of hours. I was probably the only person on that panel that put that much work in. Everyone else spoke very authentically. My delivery was very rehearsed. So I felt very confident about that afterwards because I got some good feedback from some people, and it was videoed, and I was able to watch it back once or twice. But one thing that's slightly downside from that is that I would love to have been able to do it authentically, and I don't think I could. I didn't have the capacity for that. But that was the most recent of moments where I did experience that feel-good factor of, I've done this.
And you do, and I remember it really well. You did rehearse and you practiced and you recorded and time again. So you know you can get yourself organized for those type of things. I really want to sort of push you a bit on one of the things you said. You would have loved. You've given yourself a whole bunch of even better ifs there as well. Like, I did it, and yet you would have loved to have done it better. Right now, if you think about the level you were at going into that, you'd never spoken. This was your level, Toastmasters, whatever. Right? This was a next step, wasn't it? It was panel and it was very erudite and microphones and all that. So your first time, you've already stepped up, X%. What is it that makes you then criticize yourself and say, I wish I'd have done it better, spoken from the heart? What's going on there?
I guess I've seen a lot of very good speakers, including yourself, who are able to give a faultless delivery of their what they're trying to put across in a way that's so unrehearsed, and I think everything I've ever had to do well, I've had to rehearse for it and deliver it. It feels like to me I've always had to deliver it in a very scripted way, and because I'm not confident enough to do it, throw the notes away and say, right, I'm going to do this freestyle. And not in life, you can't have a script for everything. There's going to be times when you haven't got time to prepare, and you've got to have the confidence to step up and do it without notes. So although I felt I made a leap forward at that conference, it was still a very tense thing for me that I'm acutely aware of, that if it was a regular thing, I've got to do something different to be better at it. I can't spend a month preparing notes.
Of course. Of course. And I'm sure if you speak to other speakers, including me, first time I did something like that, same thing. That's what we go through. So there's something here, right, about like looking at what you do and looking at moving from having to put in a whole load of work to do it well versus it's natural and it's fluid and it's seamless, probably because you've done it enough times. So examples of when you do things that are natural and fluid and seamless because you've done them enough times, maybe in your professional life or your personal life, you think, I don't have to prepare a plan, I can just do that.
Sorry, Charlie, I was slightly distracted. Your point being?
Well, I think the question is, think about times when you do this, when you do it well without rehearsal, because you're really good at it. I mean, I can think of a couple, but I'm sure you can as well.
Yeah. I think I know I have had experiences like that. The feeling it gave me, and I'm trying to pinpoint one of those events where everything just came out naturally.
Yeah.
It was like I was on autopilot, but it all just worked. What I said and how I said it.
Yes.
And that to me, the feedback I got at that time really had a big impact on me. I actually felt very good about that. And that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
It's these moments stand out in my mind because there's so few.
Okay.
And they have mostly been to do with work.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just that moment where I was able to pull out the right answer that made a big difference to the result of what I was there to do. And they're the two. There's two particular ones that I can think of that were probably in the last 10 years. It's not many, really, is it?
and in those moments, did you really trust yourself? Would you have backed yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what made it the way it was.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yes.
I wasn't prepared, but I came out with the right thing and in the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So there are moments these things can happen, and I'm really going to encourage you to really look at your own language, because then there's always I want to say a yes, but you've described these wonderful things and you said, but it's not very much. It's only twice in 10 years. Well, it's twice in 10 years, right? It's twice that it's happened. So what goes on that makes you just nudge it down a little bit?
Nudge it down.
Yeah, as in like that, here's this great thing, but it's not so good.
Yeah, the self-criticism, I suppose, really not accepting that I did a good job. It was enough. It doesn't have to be the best every time. It could just be adequate. But I struggle with just doing adequate. There's an example in the work I do. I'm very anal, and every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and it takes a lot longer to produce things like that. And I think that's not a good thing to do because it doesn't need it every time. I should be putting a bit less effort in. But yeah, so I'm very critical of myself, and that's why good enough is never good enough. For me, it's I always feel like I can do better. I want to do better, and then I get frustrated when I don't think I've done a particularly good job. But then I haven't always worked on myself to get that bit better. I've been selfish and thought, why can't I do that? I've got to here now. What is it? I'm thinking, why can't I do a much better job of this? But I'm not saying, well, how do I make a much better job of it? And I think that happens quite a lot in my daily life.
So in all of that, the word that popped up was selfish. So just say a bit more about selfish.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I feel like I had to have a lot of moments of selfishness on myself, especially, and I think, well, I can be selfish outside of myself as well. It's something. I've a few times I've had to stop myself and think, no, this isn't right. This is not how you're supposed to be. In being selfish on myself, it's probably where I'm sacrificing doing things outside of life at work. I'm just working very long hours, so I'm being selfish in that regard. I'm not giving myself a balance.
Okay. Okay.
And, I think I'm probably putting too much emphasis on trying to be great at something, and really it's just not working.
Okay. So it's more not selfish in that traditional me, but more self-critical.
I think so. I kind of understand that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my head around, I suppose, general use of that term. All right. So so there does seem this theme, doesn't it? Every time you talk about something strong, actually there is some criticism turns up, and you said you're hard on yourself because you hold high standards. So what I want to ask you, and this might sound like a massively leading question, it's probably going to be, is it possible to be really hard and firm on yourself and hold really high standards, but actually do it gently and do it with kindness and do it with care rather than with criticism?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that is. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever kind of really done that. Well, in fact, no, I tell a lie. There was only probably one time in the last couple of years where I was working with some lawyers because I was an expert on a patent infringement case.
Yeah.
And they were like coaching me all the way through.
Yeah.
I know lawyers aren't meant to do that, but in patent work they can. And the end result was really a very good one for everyone, and I was really pleased with the report. And I was congratulating them and not myself.
Yeah.
They said, "Hang on a minute, you've done all this work. We've just been in there steering you a little bit." We got to that result in a very gentle way. It did take a long while. It was nearly a year.
Yeah.
But they were always there to really just ask questions and put down my answers in a very logical way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good example to use.
I'm wondering that when you think back on that example, did you appreciate the stretch that you were putting yourself through, as well as not giving yourself a hard time?
It was a stretch, but it was. They took away some of the real edgy work, the writing up, using the right words, but it was all my thinking that was down on paper, and the creative side as well. So doing that role, you had to think very, very creative. You had to put several different hats on to think of different things at different stages, and that all sort of they facilitated that coming together.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a lot of hours, but not aggressive hours of me putting in very late nights and stressing and worrying. It was spread over a period of time. Yeah. It was done more smoothly. Yeah.
So what's your learning from that? What's your learning from reflecting on that experience?
It was a more focused thing to do. Definitely having the focus and staying with that was a very good thing. And I actually enjoyed it. I found it quite interesting all the way through, and I was keen to keep progressing through. Unlike a lot of other things I do. I'm not the best report writer in the world, but unfortunately I have to do a lot of that, and I struggle with it.
Well, let's, if it's all right, let's hold on to some of those words you've just used. You said focused, keen to do, and enjoyed when you talked about that project. And if you compare that with some of the earlier words that you used, like toxic and pressure and aggressive and control, what do you notice about the difference in the language coming towards the end than the language at the beginning of this conversation? Your language.
It's both ends of the spectrum, really. Yeah, very different.
Yes.
I'm trying to think how that is. Yeah. I don't know yet.
So, and you're right, we've probably gone over that end, and then we've come all the way to a different end. We're into our last few minutes now, so let's start bringing this to a close, if that's all right. If I go back to the beginning and you asked, the thing that you asked for is to get a bit more knowledge so that you could start making some changes. Where are you at on that journey of knowledge?
I think we've touched on quite a few areas actually that I can start to see. I can draw a link, a connection between how I can do things more effectively, and by doing things more effectively, like being focused and content with doing it, it brings in confidence. Because I was very confident when I did that report with these lawyers. What I'm trying to find out is, I suppose the big question you asked is whether it is that what you're doing is the right thing you should be doing, and that is work. Because I struggle with a lot of this, and I'm trying to be extra. I'm not being precious about it, but I'm trying to do a really good job of it. And this is a very difficult one for me to talk about, I suppose, really. Yeah, am I doing the right job? Am I in the right job?
Yes.
I don't know. And why is that making me think that? I don't know, really. I suppose it's because we've thrown all these things up in the air, and I'm actually seeing that what I do for work is dominating my life. Maybe it's making me unhappy. I don't want to think like that, because I want to do what I'm doing, I guess. Yeah. So have I got to try and look at it a different way? Yeah, I'm confused about this, I suppose. Yeah, I'm at a juncture which is confusing me a bit.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And to let you know, I mean, this does sometimes happen. We're in sort of 55 minutes of a 60-minute conversation, and sometimes new revelations, new things turn up. So that's quite a big one for us to try and tackle in the last 5 minutes. Are you in the right career or not? But are you all right to hold on to that and either bring that to the next session or to mull it over, over this day today? Is that okay?
Yeah. I'll definitely, we'll bring it to the next session.
Yeah. You're unlikely to forget a statement like that, are you? You will probably carry on thinking about it, right?
Yeah, I think I will.
Fab. Okay, thanks. So from today, from all the things you've talked about, the wanting to have some approaches that you can start developing some confidence. Let me ask, firstly, what do you want to do? What actions do you want to take from today?
I think I need to have some basic steps on, what to look at and how to act.
Yes.
Or act on things. Do I need to sign up to a 6-month course on assertiveness, or do I need to read a book, or do I need to just get out there and practice some basic things? Definitely, I can see that I've been able to do this thing with being confident in the past. So why can't I just keep doing that? That's the thing, really. That's, maybe it's this vulnerability, weakness that overpowers rather than it's subdued and put in the background. I'm reading a very good book at the moment called The Chimp Paradox.
Yes.
And that's given me a lot of insight about how you think and your brain and everything. So some of that probably can be of help. Yes. But I think practice is the best method. Yes. You can read all the books you like, but it's being in that environment where you can try and be the way you want to be.
Yes.
I don't get enough of that, really. Yeah.
So okay, so it sounds like, and yeah, I mean, you're right that Chimpies, there is lots of stuff in there that you can understand, but you have to do the application. So you've said you want to apply yourself to it. You're not quite sure what stops you, but you want to carry on doing that, and you want to notice yourself, right? So things you're going to commit to doing. Is it you're going to try it in certain situations? Is it you're going to keep a diary to track how you're getting on? Is it you're just going to carry on thinking about it? What are you going to commit to?
I've never been one for writing a diary.
Yeah.
But I'm fully aware of the benefit of doing that. I've often thought I should be doing that, and I think that's probably something I'd like to try. Again, I get a bit lazy on some of these things, and I get too absorbed with just work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think having something I can read back on how what my thinking was at that particular time, yeah, that would be really good.
Okay. So you said at the beginning, you asked me you wanted the challenge to be something like 10, right? So I'm going to ask you, like, what is a 10 step to take so that this carries on? You know, if you're going to commit to some actions, what would it be of these things you're starting to say?
Yeah, I think a 10 would be me giving at least, maybe an hour a day to thinking about these things and making improvements, changes, studying this whole thing to see where I'm going with it. And yeah, definitely putting it into practice wherever I can.
So
Yeah.
it's like a Leon learning module, right? Hour a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 5 days off for good behavior.
One day off.
One
Yeah.
day off, right? One day off for good behavior. Sunday's off. All
Yeah.
right, okay. And how are you going to measure if that's going to make any impact? How will you monitor what you're committing to see if it makes a difference?
Only if I can get to record how I'm thinking and practicing during each day and look back on progress that way, really.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be there's no snapshot thing here. It's going to be over the long term.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I think how I think, I've got to think confidently and try and suppress negative thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. So this is working on tangible actions, but also, you just described a bit of mind mastery, didn't it? And managing your mind, managing and noticing your negative thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that feel like enough? Does it feel like you've stretched and challenged yourself enough today?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Fab, fab. And how do you feel? How do you feel as we get to the end of this?
Yeah, I feel very good about having looked at this in a forensic way, really, almost, and pulling out some of the things that are key to it.
Yes.
That they're not things I think about
Yeah.
every day or any time, really. But we've talked about some certain key things that I think are all to do with it.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and that word forensic is really interesting. So the last question I'm going to ask you is forensically, right? What have you learned? What have you learned about yourself? You shared an awful lot of stuff. So what's been a learning that you're leaving today with?
that I'm very complex. Yeah, I think there's some way to go before it all. There's some clarity.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a jumble.
Yeah.
But already, yeah, I can see strands of things that, if I have a better understanding of them,
Yes.
then it should all, work better. Over the course of making notes on my thoughts and everything else, yeah, I think that's going to really help.
Great. I'm pleased. And does it feel okay to get to this stage at the end of an hour? The complex, a way to go. Some of that language, is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Fab. Well, I just as this has been your first sort of full ever coaching session, one of the things that I'll let you know is that often what happens is between now for the rest of today and periodically before you come back to the next session, the thoughts and the feelings and the ideas continue. It's not like we haven't tied today out with a ribbon. So my encouragement is just to carry on noticing, just to carry on seeing what you see, and notice what new and other further thoughts pop up as the day and the week goes on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Fab. Leon, thank you so much. I really appreciate, you know, I think we weren't sure where we were going to start, but there's been so much stuff, hasn't it? And you've gone through a lot of professional stuff, but a lot of personal stuff. And this does take, you know, it takes something. It takes spirit and it takes courage, and you've really thrown yourself into it. So I really appreciate it. And I hope it helps as much as it looks like it's going to. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's been great.
No, a real pleasure. A real pleasure.
Very much, Charlie.
All right. All the best then.
Cheers.